light this candle. All right, we will call the meeting retreat order. It is 6:04. Brandon, roll call, please.
Brett.
Here.
Bob.
Yeah.
Mike.
Yes.
Di.
Yes.
Renee. Alex.
Is there a motion to excuse Renee and Alex from the retreat for this evening?
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Discussion. Brandon.
Bob.
Yes.
Di.
Yes.
Mike.
Yes.
Brett.
Yes. There is a copy of the Nebraska Open Meetings Act on the wall. Feel free to take a peek, and please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. You do have your agenda in front of you. Any changes or amendments? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved. Second.
Discussion. Brandon.
Mike.
Yes.
Bob.
Yes.
Brett.
Yes.
Di.
Yes.
Item number 4, discuss, consider, take any necessary action on the draft of the strategic plan facilitated by NASB, and we have in our presence Marcia and
Stephanie. Yes.
Jess.
Yes.
What's it?
Jess.
Stephanie.
Stephanie.
Perfect.
Stephanie.
I got that
strange.
hearing.
Jessica's my sister. So.
Oh, is that right?
No way.
Yeah.
That's funny. Okay, well, thank you for having us. The way I would like to open this up is, where were we? Where are we? And where are we going? So where were we? The last time that I was in Wahoo, Stephanie and I visited with Di, Mike, and Renee. You might recall. We were approaching an action item on the board meeting agenda to approve the strategic plan, because we had presented it to administration. They had had the opportunity to make some edits, and the board really wanted to talk about the ¡1 guiding principle in that document. So what we did is we organized a committee meeting with the 3 of them, and they articulated what they felt would be the #1 guiding principle. Now, the one thing that I do want to interject into this, one thing that we had shared with the committee, the reason that we had put, remind me.
District resources.
Yes, district resources as being the #1 guiding principle was all based upon the data. The data is what drives the design of your strategic plan. But the concern that was expressed to us by the committee is they felt that personnel effectiveness should be the #1 guiding principle. There was a lot of pieces of different rationale. One, that's one of our greatest investments, which is true. If you look at our budget, it is 85%, sometimes it can be higher than that in some districts. And they felt that that's where that energy should be invested. And so we spent the remainder of the evening talking about why that was important to them. They expressed their interest in wanting more student data. Data to better understand how students are performing. What are we doing to invest in our staff to be able to provide high quality instruction in every classroom? And so there's a lot of evidence there to say, yes, that is in there. What is important is that you understand personnel effectiveness was in the strategic plan. It simply was not the #1 guiding principle. There are other factors in the reason for that. Now, the other thing that I want to also emphasize is that always in our strategic plans, in our framework, you're going to find strategies, performance indicators that are not necessarily just under personnel effectiveness, that do impact personnel, right? So even in the district resources, there were components within that guiding principle that did speak specifically to personnel effectiveness. However, it wasn't the primary #1 focus within that. And so we talked about how do we as a board, how can we be better engaged when it comes to personnel effectiveness and what is happening. In short, what I'm going to say is your board meetings are going to look different going forward, and I described this to the committee. Your focus is primarily going to be the strategic plan. And it's one goal within the strategic plan. So personnel effectiveness, we can use that example. And tonight we're going to be talking further about strategy number 1. But the feel of even your committee work is going to change, because your committee work, and I know that, as I understand it, committee work is as needed. Would that be correct?
Yeah.
Okay. Always remember that we operate as a committee as a whole when we are in a board meeting. Yes, we can have a curriculum committee, a personnel committee, a policy committee, transportation, grounds, etc. But we also have that option of committee as a whole, where we discuss things as a committee in a board meeting. So the feel of your committee meetings will also take on a different look, a different feel. Because the need for a committee meeting should be predicated upon the administration's need to engage that committee to address, this is what we're working on, we need to vet this item with you, and then you'll make a recommendation before the full board on moving forward on this. The other thing that will happen in your board meeting, and I'm kind of getting ahead of myself, but I think it's worth the conversation. Our committee meeting really spoke heavily to how can we be better engaged? And I said, through your board meeting. So this isn't unique to Wahoo. Strategic plan, the strategic plan, progress, success, reports, PowerPoints, data, etc., will happen in your board meetings as much as it'll happen in committee meetings as needed. That will be a standing item on your agenda every single month. Don't be surprised if administrative reports, presentations are all tied back to the strategic plan. You will live and breathe that strategic plan. It drives everything that's happening in this school district. It is continuous improvement in its own way. Your school improvement goals were integrated into your strategic plan. So it's not like they're working on school improvement goals over here, building goals different than strategic plan. No, it's all one living document. And then there's going to be that responsibility on your part of what that's going to look like. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that at the end of this meeting, about how do we monitor progress, success of that strategic plan. And it's going to be your responsibility to pull in that strategic overview committee come March, maybe April, preferably around the March area, because we get into April and people get busy and it's like, I don't want to go to a meeting. So sometime in March, you're re-inviting them back in. Your administration is presenting to them, this is what we've done this last year in progress on this. Now, there may not be a lot. There may be a significant amount where they're going to tie it to other areas in the strategic plan, the work that they've done. But each year, you're going to want to bring your community back in and celebrate the great success that's being realized. And they tie it right back to the plan, and that's what drives it. So what I'm going to have Stephanie do is talk about, so our charge was move district resources and make personnel effectiveness #1 guiding principle. So Stephanie, how did you make that?
So just like Marcia said, throughout the entire document, we always give 4 guiding principles, 3 guiding principles that come to the top from all of the data that we compile from all of the different stakeholders, the surveys and the in-person meetings. We give 3 of our guiding principles that the data has pointed to, and then the 4th guiding principle is always board governance, because the board has such a significant role. It's the district's strategic plan, it's not the superintendent's, it's not the principals, it's the entire district. So the board does need to be involved in it. And then we tie some of those board governance goals to what the administrators are actually working through in the other 3 guiding principles. Now, when we had prior, it was district resources was the number one, because that's what, like Marcia said, that's what the data pointed to, but throughout the top three, there were pieces of professional, or personnel effectiveness, professional development was most of it. So you see we have a strategy and then we have the recommended performance indicators. So prior to us developing the personnel effectiveness number one guiding principle, some of those recommended performance indicators that you'll see here, those were in other pieces of the plan. So what we did was we took, and some of them I might have needed to kind of reword a little bit so that they weren't, so if it was specific towards district resources, then I might have needed to change some wording in there to make sure that we were meeting the needs of the committee and what they felt that we needed to do. But we went through and I went back and I looked at some of the other data that we had collected specifically for personnel effectiveness, because in your plan, we have the remaining guiding principles that we don't come up to the top. And so personnel effectiveness was still in there, and we had created some strategies already for that. So I also looked at those and said, okay, what else can we put into this? If we were going to make it the number one thing, then how are we going to meld all of these different pieces together? So that's how we came up with, I think there's 1.1 and I think there's 1.2. So there's two strategies now in personnel effectiveness. And a majority of these recommended performance indicators came directly from different pieces of the top three guiding principles that were discovered, that came up from the data anyway. And then I used some of the others that were in the remaining guiding principle to support some of the other things that were already identified. So that's how we came, like I said, this wasn't, we appreciated that meeting with the committee, and it wasn't new data, it wasn't new information, it was just kind of realigned and redesigned so that it fell up to the top. Okay, is that?
Any questions by board?
What got bumped?
District resources.
Oh, that did, okay.
So there was a heavy, a lot of data pointing to just using your facilities correctly. You guys just went through, all the building, major building project. And there was a lot of concern amongst all of the stakeholders on just using spaces appropriately. How parking was a huge issue. There were some huge pieces that were very important to a lot of people, and that's why district resources came to the top. They wanted, yes, now we have this great building, but are we doing what we can with it? Are we using it the way that we should? So you will see, because that's what your stakeholders said, and that is a piece of personnel effectiveness. Because are we using our staff the way that we should? Are they in the positions that they should be in? Do we have the accommodations to let them be and let them teach and let them do what they need to do? So there is a piece of facilities still in personnel effectiveness, because it all is very connected.
There can also be a strong evolution of progressing expanded learning opportunities, because our staff continues to be, they're lifelong learners, many of them, where they're still taking coursework to expand their endorsements. You have a staff member that arrives at a different endorsement, or they're equipped to be able to provide something that you're not, that there needs to be the flexibility with staff, administration, to be able to say, we have an opportunity to expand what we're providing our students.
Mm-hmm.
And so always evolving, but with a brand new facility, what does that look like? I mean.
And for that to tie in, that's why we district resources isn't just about the facilities, it's also about your staffing, it's also about the programming that you're offering. I mean, it's and district resources kind of can encompass every single thing, because you're always allocating money to these different items. And so, so it's not a leap to add and to discuss district resources when you're talking about professional development, because that's a district resource, that's something that you guys have to decide. That's a calendar situation, who are we bringing in, what do we need to bring in, what kind of programming do we want. I know access to educational opportunities is in there, so that all ties in together. So it was an opportunity to spread some of that need in district resources out a little bit but then still maintain the focus on personnel effectiveness.
And then also it's worth mentioning, notice the italics in parentheses at the end of the strategy statement 1.2. Cultural inclusion, thank you for doing that. Engagement, district building climate, culture, and district resources. Essentially what that means is that there's content in those other guiding principles that pertain to this strategy. It's like I said, you're not going to find personnel effectiveness only and independently only in that guiding principle. You will see it filtered or scattered throughout in different ways, depending upon what the guiding principle is. And right there, what we try to do is draw your attention to the fact that personnel effectiveness also exists in those three other guiding principles, if that makes sense. Any questions? Mike, Di, any questions from you? Looks good. Okay. All right. Brett, did you have anything? Okay.
I think you did a great job first.
Okay. All right, well, appreciate that. But we like working with you to meet expectations. All right, I'm gonna be respectful of your time because I know there's a lot of other things you'd rather be doing than in a meeting. So, this is good. Okay, what I'd like to do, I'm struggling with between the two. Maybe let's go ahead and do this.
Okay.
I think you're gonna love this. I had told Stephanie, let's wait until after we talk about the governance, but, you got a copy? Okay, all right. Uh-huh. I'm gonna get, I am going to give them a copy. I'll share this with you and.
Marcia, he can have mine,
Okay,
Fine.
all right. Well, and we've got copies for the other two folks. This is for, we're gonna present this as supporting for the board to, on this guiding principle. Okay? All right. Okay. Yeah, we can use theirs.
Yeah.
So one of the things that we talked about in the committee work, in the committee, we talked about the committee's interest in receiving data, receiving more data. And oftentimes I'll even talk about the disconnect in defense of the board. You're in a volunteer position, you come to a board meeting once a month, maybe you have committee meetings in between. And back in the day, before strategic planning existed in board leadership, I'm taking the board through a self-assessment or whatever the case may be. And this is a great example of the disconnect. I would say to the board, when was the last time your administration presented the school improvement plan to you? And sometimes I get the deer in the headlight looks like, okay, school improvement. You know, trying to, pull from the memory bank of, well, I don't know. And maybe you would have some boards, okay, no, our administration presented that, blah, blah, blah. And your administration is sitting there going, we just did that 2 months ago. We have presented that. There is a disconnect for board members. You come to board meetings and you leave here as a volunteer, something's presented to you. It is something that our administration lives in every day, right? It's their language, it's what they're talking about, it's what their focus is on. And they're working with their staff to carry that out. There can be a disconnect. So what are we doing to help you as a school boards association to have a better connection? And what is our job? Our job, yes, it is. Number one thing that we do, we hire a superintendent, we evaluate that superintendent, and we govern through policy. But really what we're also also here is to hold staff accountable to providing a quality education in a safe learning environment that every student can be successful, whatever their success rate is. Whether they're a high ability learner, or they're that child that's on an IEP, or no, they fall right in the middle. They're not a high ability learner and they don't have an IEP, they're just living their life, trying to get the best education that they can. But it really is our responsibility. And we know that when boards are engaged, they have goals, mission, vision, they govern through policy, they are engaging their community members and understanding their expectations of what a graduate looks like when they walk across the stage. You are looking at data, not anecdotal data, data that says this is how our kids are performing. You don't have to understand what that data is or be equipped to understand it, but you do have a responsibility as an elected official of this board to be able to engage with your administration to say, how are we responding to this data? Is this what you were hoping for? If not, how are we responding? What are we going to do next? Do we need new curriculum? Do we need to expand the professional development that our staff is going through? Learning more about the instructional piece. Is it behavior of our students? Is that interrupting learning? Is it a group of students? There's so many different educational reasons why a district operates the way that they do, or they make the progress that they do. So I'm going to go back to the committee meeting. We want more data. We want to learn more about how we're performing as a school district. And so we're going to dive deep into this standard, and I want this standard to become your go-to, but I also want us to be your go-to in responding to questions as you have questions as you go through this. But how do we equip you, now that you have this strategic plan, you're going to be adopting it at your next board meeting, how do we equip you to engage with your administration on the work that they're doing to carry out that strategic plan? And this is where I turn it over to Stephanie, and she's going to give you a great explanation of how do we do that.
So the goal is that as the administrators are working through, like Marcia said, as they're working through the strategic plan, or they're developing, okay, these are the things that we need to accomplish, their job is to say, this is how we're going to accomplish those things. That's the administrator's role. Then they will come and they will report in various committees. If it's something that is curriculum related, that report should probably go to the curriculum committee. If it's something like we need professional development and this is how much it's going to cost, maybe you have a budget or a finance committee, then that needs to go to them so they can say, and then everything is tied back to the strategic plan in some way, because that's how we're moving the district forward, right? So you are in your various committees, and then you learn about these things through your administration, and then it comes to the board as a whole, and then that discussion, you come with your recommendation, there may or may not be discussion, and then you move forward as a district. However, what are we expecting? What are the outcomes that we're wanting to see? We don't live in that space. As board members, normally, we aren't educators. So we don't have that language. We don't even sometimes know what questions I should be asking or what the expectation even is. Like I see, it all sounds good in the strategic plan. Yes, these are all good things we want to have for Wahoo, but how do we get there and what does it look like when we're there? And so for personnel effectiveness, we created expectations, outcomes. These are just possibilities. These are not,
Yes.
this is what is going to happen, okay? This is just us saying, here's some potential ideas. We don't live in Wahoo, we don't work for Wahoo Public Schools, so we don't know specifics. But these are some ideas when we're getting language on what that might look like. So it's broken down per strategy. So in our first strategy, and we did prefer personnel effectiveness only, just so that you kind of get an idea of what this could potentially look like. Your very first strategy is to consistently implement a certified staff onboarding and mentoring program. So that's what that strategy is mostly centered on. So what are some expectations and desired outcomes? We want higher retention rates, right? That would be something that you have a better culture, people want to stick around. So they feel supported, they feel like they know what's going on, so that's good. Increased staff satisfaction, professional confidence. Improved classroom instruction. Stronger understanding of how we do things in Wahoo. What's our district mission, vision, and goals? If you have a brand new teacher who comes in, or you have a teacher who comes in from another district, they're bringing that knowledge from other places, and we want to bring them into the fold here, so that's what that onboarding, that mentorship piece is for. And then enhancing communication, that was a big piece in our personnel effectiveness. I think that originally it was addressed in the district culture and climate, and so we moved that into personnel effectiveness, because it is a really big piece of that, making sure that everybody's on the same page. And then there's performance indicators. If you open it up and you flip to the back of that piece of paper, there is an example of a timeline of implementation. So this is just for this first strategy. Remember, your strategic plan is 3 to 5 years. So these are not going to get done in the first year. You maybe won't even see anything in the first 3 months. But year one, here are some things that your administrators may or may not be starting to think about or starting to implement, and we've broken it down into year 2 and then year 3+. So this is an idea of kind of some of those things that you could expect to see. It might not look like this at all. There might be other things that your administrators have different ideas of how to go about implementing the strategic plan. But we broke it down per strategy. So you have strategy 1.1, and then the second page is strategy 1.2. So this, at the very least, equips you as a board member to even know what this strategy is supposed to accomplish, okay? And hopefully that spurs some questions when you're in your committee meetings, when you're getting a report even at a regular meeting from the board. If you get a report and it says, we're working on strategy 1.1, and this is what we're doing so far. I mean, this is something that you could refer to, or at least it'll get you in the right lane of where you can go.
I think what's important is, especially the administrators, I step back to the administrators. Brandon didn't have the opportunity to hear what I said, but I want to emphasize how willing we are to walk alongside you. And so this is just an example, only as an example. So if administration dives into that guiding principle number 1, and they're looking at this strategy, and they determine that our performance indicators or our action steps are going to be A, B, C, and D, it may be different than what we've put on here. I want you to be mindful of that. However, if they determine A through F is going to be this for us to meet this expectation, we will provide you with supporting questions that you would ask for those questions. What I want you to understand is that what they then bring to you, let's say they do a study on staff retention. They did a 5-year study of where were we 5 years ago? Where were we 3 years ago? I don't want to probably go 5 years because then we're going to get into COVID and that's a whole nother, right? But if we would go 3 years, 2 years, and you're able to look at that data, that's your footprint today. Once they begin implementing the strategies, the action steps to improve retention, what has been the return on investment a year from now, 2 years from now, 3 years from now? Professional development, well-being programs, Educational Health Alliance, their wellness program is a huge factor in recognizing the well-being of teachers. It isn't something that we need to do for you. You have access to that data. There is a wealth of data that you could be looking for to see, are we having an impact? At the end of the day, what your strategic plan should do for you as you continue to monitor progress is you should be able to say, what has been the return on investment in this? How my biggest thing for me that I want you to be able to look at is how have we moved the needle on improving proficiency? How have we made this a better system? How are behaviors gone down? There's so many moving pieces to what that retention, how it can be impacted. But more importantly, I want to make sure that you understand that this is our idea of what that might be. Another thing that I shared is an onboarding process, a mentoring. I want you to understand that rarely, if ever, do we go into a district where there is this perfect onboarding, mentoring program. We recently had a district that developed a very comprehensive onboarding, mentoring program, and the superintendent said, Marcia, take it. I don't care who you share it with. I will share it. It comes from Skylar, actually, is where it comes from. It's a good plan. You don't need to be reinventing the wheels. That's huge for your administrators to be able to take that and say, this is what we really like about it, this is what we don't like about it, we want to make it our own. Or, it's unfair of me to say that you don't have that, because you may have that, and they may love what they have. So, they enhance it. PLCs and professional development, you would definitely expect to be a part of personnel effectiveness. So when your administration's coming to you in a board meeting and they're presenting a professional development plan and what they want to do to advance effective instruction in every classroom, that's where you play a significant role. And it's supporting why they need that. And what does that look like? How is that being funded? Is that coming from the general budget, general fund? Is that coming from ESU dollars? Is it grant dollars? What is it? It's understanding how we are covering those costs. But more importantly, what's the benefit to our staff? Why is this important?
I would say too, I think one of the pitfalls of a lot of board members, and I've said this a lot to my board, and just so if you don't know, I'm a 14-year board member from David City, so I'm currently serving. So we actively, I say, it might not always come just like in your face, hey, look, a strategic plan, this is well related. It's also familiarizing yourself with the words of the strategic plan and going through there, because you might be getting updates in a way that's just not right there in your face. That it just
Right.
might be in an action item that you're going to be doing, and maybe inadvertently it just hasn't been like, hey, this is also strategic plan, or it might be in a different admin report, or it could be in a variety of ways. And so it's being aware as a board member of that relates back, and that's okay that you might be getting that on the side or peripherally, and that it's not just always right there on a piece of paper for you to read. But you are only able to see those things if you are aware of what it is that's in the plan and what your administrators are working through.
Now go to the single page. And while we are going to highlight, this is potential board questions. Again, we're sticking to guiding principle 1.1. So general oversight questions, how do these action steps support the strategic plan and the district overall mission, vision, blah, 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 blah. We're gonna go down. I want you to jump down to questions specific to strategy 1.1. Program design. How is the onboarding process currently structured and what changes are proposed? Very appropriate question if administration says that should be a part of the action plan. Because remember, the other thing that oftentimes will happen in a strategic plan is we'll build something in there and administration will look at it and they'll go, we're already doing that. For me, I say keep it in there, because then they are able to come to the board and say, great news, that's already in place in our district, PLCs. We already have PLCs in our district. This isn't something new. And so what kind of questions can you be asking in response? But here's the other thing that I say to you. Never ever hesitate when a presentation is being presented by administration. I'm going to say specifically data. This is where I would use this question. Never ever hesitate to say, what kind of questions should I be asking you in response to this data? I feel very, very strongly that you should not be an expert in reading data. But you should have a working relationship with your administration that you can say, how are we responding to this data? What did you like about it? What did you see in it? But more importantly, what is it that I should understand as a board member? What is this going to mean? That's where I feel that you need to be as a board. Would you add anything to that, Stephanie?
No, I just, yeah, I think having that, discussion and being able to ask that question, because in the end, what you are needing to be able to do is take information from the board meeting, from the administrator, and if you need to answer questions from constituents or from community members, that you are well versed in. Yeah, they presented us with this data, and this is why we're going in the direction we're going. Then your job is to be able to explain, to understand and explain. Like Marcia said, you don't need to be able to read it. You're not the one who's going to analyze it. You're not the one who's going to apply the outcomes to what we've decided. But what you need to do is you need to be able to say, this is why we're doing what we're doing, and this is why we voted the way that we voted, and all of those different things. You just are a good conduit between administrators and community.
Being a board member in David City, would that be a question that you'd ask on the fly at a meeting? Would you look at your agenda first, develop some questions, that way if there's digging to do on that particular topic question, that an answer can be ready from, whether it's Brandon or Vernon or Josh or Mark or
Right.
anybody?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of times where questions are just going to require a little bit of investigation or fact gathering, just so that answer can be given and it's a full answer and it's a complete answer. So in my experience, if I do look at the agenda, I do say, I look at all of the attachments and I will make my comments or make my notes. And if I have a question, a specific question, I do email the superintendent and I say, and sometimes he will get back and email the entire board, like this question was asked, here's the explanation.
Yes.
And other times it'll be, I want you to know I am also going to ask this question in the meeting, where I've asked it before, but maybe I want the public to also hear the answer, and so ask it again, and then, so it's not always bad to, once you get it, answer to the question, to ask it in the public meeting as well, if the information is good to know. And sometimes, personally, I like the administrators to be able to show the public, like, these are professional people who really know what they're doing, they're experts in their field, and the way that they answer the questions it really does, it puts them in a good light, and it allows the public to see that they're good at their job and that they're good for the districts too.
But if a question is important to you, Brett, chances are it'll be important to the other board members. And that's why I like the other board members to have the response
Yeah.
to that question.
Correct.
Right.
So I appreciate you raising that point.
But it is kind of also knowing if it's not, hey, did we, I don't remember, did we approve that mowing bid or whatever, like, that's not something, that might not be something that needs to be fact gathered. So it's just knowing what kind of question you're
I was
asking
in
and being prepared.
more precise to like a question about God or how we use
Yeah.
that, which was for me.
Yeah, because the superintendent
Because some
might
of
need
those
to
are tough on
go,
the fly, if it's
For
a
sure.
curriculum director
Exactly,
question, so
exactly.
we can email or.
they might
whoever.
need to go to other staff members to get clarification, for sure, yeah.
Sure.
Do you have any questions about the two resources that we just shared with you? Good, bad, yes, this is
Good.
it. Okay, all right, let's move on. We're going to go now to this document, Board Governance Guiding Principle. As you may recall, and this is where you're going to find yourself, we need to cover the, sorry, I jumped too quickly.
No, that's okay. In this, our standards of effective board governance in this handout on page 52, obviously it's not specific to your strategic plan, but we do have, based on our guiding principles, we have data that you can consider if you're looking at student-centered learning. Here's a lot of data that is a consideration that has a direct effect on the classroom, and here's some questions that a board member could ask to just about that data. So your administrators and your teachers they live in that data, they use data all the time. They use it when they're, deciding what resources to give to individual students and how to build their classrooms and curriculum and everything. But we don't always know how they use their data and what data they use sometimes. So each of these is broken down into those guiding principles, and so we just want to draw your attention to that as a resource for you to look at, so that gives you a little bit of language and vocabulary to use if you have questions at a board meeting.
Okay. All right. Sorry about that, I kind of jumped. Okay, now let's go to board operations.
Okay.
In there, and we'll have you stay right, keep your books open. And, okay, so now, you might recall, it's been a minute since we talked about this, but there is the fourth guiding principle within the strategic plan. This is true in every district. We did not pick on Wahoo board. Every board gets this when they get a strategic plan from the School Boards Association.
It is specific to the data from the
Yes.
board responses and the superintendent responses. So it is
Good.
specific to Wahoo, but everybody gets board governance.
Yes, good reminder. Okay, so guiding principle number 4 is board governance. And there are 2 actual strategies, but we're only targeting on 1. And I'm even saying that we're going to talk about how this is going to be a step-by-step process. We're not going to engulf this entire guiding principle immediately. But just for the record, this was to create a system of governance that ensures the mission and vision of the school district aligns to the goals, community expectations, and outcomes utilized to measure improved learning for all students, provide and share accountability in improving student success, and maintain master financial and facility plans to support the implementation of the district goals. Our strategy is to ensure meetings are effective, efficient, and orderly, focused on policy, proper board governance, professional conduct, and student learning. So as you can even see, personnel effectiveness and district building culture climate touches upon this. But one of the things that we had spent a fair amount of time in the committee meeting was really talking about how the structure of your board meeting can be one of the most visible ways that you change how you do business as a board. I will tell boards that your board meetings are the #1 way that you communicate with your public. Besides all the different ways that you communicate with your public in this district, through your website, if you do newsletters, social media, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, your board meeting's #1. And the reason that it is what are you talking about in your board meetings? And if you're spending more of your time talking about the day-to-day, and you're not talking about student learning and what you're doing to raise the bar on that, that sends a very profound message to your patrons. That, what is this board doing? And that's usually the board, the people want to watch the board meetings with their popcorn and watch the dysfunction unfold. Again, when we structure that meeting so that we're talking about how we're improving, we're informing, we're educating, that #1, that strategic plan that they just spent that money on and brought all those people in and sought their opinion did not die on paper. And that's what we don't want. We want you to keep it viable, but most especially, your administrators are going to keep that viable. But how do we come together cohesively and collaboratively as a board and our administration to model what we're doing to carry out those initiatives? So the very first one that we talked about, and I want you to go to your board operating,
Page 94.
94. So the structure, I should back up and tell you kind of the whole purpose of this. We utilize this with every board we stand before. But the first place that we introduce this publication is in new board member workshops. And it's based upon our guiding principles. And our guiding principles, we have 9 guiding principles. And the guiding principles, so, blah, blah, blah. Protocol. The guiding principles are based upon the Iowa Lighthouse Study. And if you've ever heard me talk about the Iowa Lighthouse Study, these 9 guiding, not guiding principles, I'm stuck on that, standards of effective governance. What we know from the Iowa Lighthouse Study that was first conducted in 1998 is that a board has a direct impact on student learning. If you have mission, vision, goals, you have a strategic plan. You govern through policy. You engage your stakeholders so that you understand their expectations of what education looks like in your school district. You are looking at student success and accountability of student success. You're looking at how you align your resources to your priorities and needs. You advocate through the legislature, even your local elected officials on what's happening in this school district, how it impacts the community at large. If you're growing as a community, your city council wants to know what you're doing. And how are they responding to the growth that you potentially are creating as one of the largest employers in this community. But more importantly, looking at board operations, how you function at the board table. Your working relationship with your superintendent and then professional development. And I probably skipped one in there. It seems like I did. But anyhow, one of the things that we talked about with the committee is the structure of that board meeting agenda. So I want you to look at the first indicator. The board will ensure board meetings are focused on student learning, clearly aligned with the district goals and priorities, and celebrate the success of the district. Now, while I have great suggestions of what I think that might look like, how would you as a board measure success of that performance indicator through your board meetings? Do you have any ideas of what you would like to see in your board meetings that would speak to that performance indicator?
Test scores.
Test scores, so looking at data, right?
Data, schools of our size, state standards, where we're at with the state, are we above, below?
Your NSCAS scores,
Yeah,
ACT scores, yes. So it's going back to identifying what is the data that is available to us to look at in our board meetings. I so agree. That goes into your annual board calendar then. We should expect to receive ACT scores when? When do we get our NSCAS scores? I love that you brought up the standards, because one of the things that you should be asking as a board is, in this school district, we know that let's say the science standards. The science standards are this. 2 things, I'm gonna back up. When are we reviewing the science curriculum? And here's the next question I'm gonna ask you. Do you have in your policy manual a curriculum review policy that states this is our cycle for reviewing curriculum? Do you know if that exists?
Josh, does it exist?
Board
Yeah.
days
I
or
think it
something.
does.
Okay, all right, that's huge. It's in policy. That means that that's not an afterthought or that can be brushed aside. Usually the way that you align your curriculum policy review is you're looking at the state just reviewed the science standards. Next year, and they've adopted them. Next year, we're going to be looking at our science curriculum. Because is our curriculum aligned to our state standards? But here's the question you're going to be asking your administration. Do we align our curriculum to all of the science standards or all of the standards? Or do we look at essential standards? If we look at essential standards, are we also ensuring the kids, students are receiving content that allows them to be well versed on the other standards? But we hit the essentials part. That is a great conversation to have with administration. How are our kids performing when they leave our school district? If they pursue an associate's degree, if they embark upon, this is a great piece, If they embark upon a career, are they staying in this area? And if not, why not? That is a great survey of your graduates, right? Okay, 4-year college degree. How are they performing at mid-semester? How are you bringing those kids back in and having great, hard conversations about, if you could do it again, what would you do differently? Allow those kids to have that conversation with your juniors and seniors. If I could do it again, one, I would take my schooling much more serious. I would work harder, but I would hone in on this because I feel like I'm weak. I'm weak in math. I'm weak in science or foreign language or whatever the case may be. Those are great things you can be talking about as to assess how well are we doing, right? We do that in our board meetings. Sometimes we do retreats. It's a more casual conversation. But to have that in your board meetings, your administrators want nothing more than to celebrate the great things that are happening when it comes to your curriculum and the education of your students, but more importantly, the challenges. What do we need from you as a board to support us in being able to improve this, right?
A lot of those test scores though aren't, I mean, you're not gonna talk about those more than 2-3 times a year because of when they're taken, when they're released, when they're
No,
embargoed.
that's exactly right, Brad.
Because we see 3 and 4, I can't remember if it's a 3 or 4 year array. And it shows comparison,
Trend data.
yeah.
Mhm.
And then our shareholders, is it shareholders or stock? Shareholders, shareholders report.
Stakeholders.
Yeah. Shows a lot of that information. I don't know if it shows quite all of it. I can't remember if I've ever seen anything on college.
No.
Competes 4s and
Right.
2s.
Okay,
A lot of the data breakdown, reviews, all that good stuff. So.
okay,
And
good.
and I think part of the thing, and something that your administrators can help educate the board on too, is when you get pieces of data like those test scores, you took the test in April, you get the scores in October.
Yeah.
There's no change to curriculum once you're starting the school year.
Correct.
So if that, and do we need to, do we just adopt maybe these test scores on a reflection of the curriculum that we just adopted? Because we need more years of data to fully understand. Maybe we haven't really fully implemented it because we haven't been able to have PD. There's a lot of questions surrounding the data that you get from those test scores.
Absolutely.
So it's not just, well, we just got this new math curriculum in the spring, and now all of a sudden what, it's only been a year and we're not seeing any change. It doesn't work that fast, and it's very frustrating, but education is just a slow process in the way that things have to be adopted and the trends and data that you need to have to really support an effective decision. So just being able to ask that question and for your administrators to explain that to you in a meeting that not only benefits you, but it benefits the public, so that everybody can understand, this is why we're not making rash decisions, that we just need more time. So it's important to know, but to be reflective on why things are the way that they are. Yeah.
Okay. What else? Receiving data, are there other measuring components that you would say we could?
Probably behavioral issues, a decrease in, disciplinary actions and dropouts.
Understanding how that's hindering
Yeah.
education, right? Absolutely. And then what are we doing to equip our staff to be able to cope with that? There's something about that in our world today, we know that it is different, right? And we know teachers are leaving education because of that. And so that's a moving needle. How are we addressing that in Wahoo? That is a purposeful, great conversation that you can have. So again, it's important that your administration understands that you're interested in that. On the board meeting, there's a couple of different things in the structure of the board meeting agenda. One, you are going to see that strategic plan will be on every board meeting agenda. and you'll expect a report update on one goal, right? I know that your superintendent has already said that he does weekly meetings with administration. You probably knew that. Every week, they're talking about strategic plan and the initiative and what's happening, the work that they're doing. I want you to think about how the strat plan is a trickle-down effect. While it starts at the board, you adopt it. Obviously, it impacts the superintendent because we're holding him accountable to carry that out. He's not doing that as Superman. He's working with district-level administrators, building administrators, teachers, classified staff, and ultimately your students are being impacted by it. There isn't anybody in your district that isn't impacted in some way by that strategic plan. You think about your maintenance staff and your facilities. Maintaining these facilities now that you have, it's impacting them. How are we being responsible with our resources, our facilities? What did that mean to your maintenance staff? Did you have to grow staff because you have more space that you're taking care of? It is a trickle-down effect, and I had a superintendent ask me, Marcia, how will the strategic plan impact a second grade teacher? Oh, I guarantee you the second grade teacher will be impacted. There isn't anybody that is not impacted by this. But it is going to change how you do business as a board in working with your superintendent. Is there anything else about the board meeting structure? Right, do you currently work with the superintendent to put the board meeting agenda together?
On Tuesday mornings mostly. the week
Perfect.
before.
Right, okay. And that's what I needed to hear. That gives you, as a board, ownership of what's on the agenda. Also remember that you also have policy that allows you to place items on the agenda. But I'm also a stickler on that I want the superintendent included in that. Because if I walk in to his office as a board member and I say, hey, I want to talk about this coach, he needs to be able to tell me, I'm sorry, but that's not going to be on the agenda. Even though you have policy that says, hey, I can request as long as I request it within this much time. Okay?
So why do we have on that A, the end of A, it says, and celebrate the success of the district?
In your board meetings.
Yeah, that seems like it's imposed upon, you know, I mean, the celebration should come natural. I mean, if we run a good board meeting, if they're focused on student learning, we run them well, there should naturally be a celebration if anybody's paying attention, but it's spontaneous.
You
and
can,
Not
but
like, now
sometimes-
let's celebrate, you know, it's kind of ridiculous.
Well, but if you've ever seen our sample agendas,
No.
what page?
No, no.
It's okay.
It's not necessarily like, hey, look how good of a job we're
No,
doing in our
no, no, no,
meetings.
no.
Okay.
That's not what
We're
that
not
means.
here to boast.
That's not what that means.
And maybe it's no longer on the agenda, but when I was on the board in Waverly, it's on there. Go to page 105. Sorry. 105, we have the NASB sample agenda. And I want you to go down to item number 4, celebration of excellence. That doesn't say success, it says celebration of
Oh, we
excellence.
already have, we do that.
Exactly.
That's a
And that's what we're talking
Okay.
about.
It's not
And
us
what-
celebrating, it's,
I think about is, I describe it as bringing a classroom
yeah,
into the boardroom.
yeah, we have speakers come up, kids come up, present.
Yes, yes. You have a student that they win districts in speech. Have them present the speech. Maybe they go to state and they're going to state, and so you want them to do that. But it
All
can
of the
be,
administrators' reports, elementary, middle school, high school,
our celebration.
ADs, yeah, they're all showing progress, stars of the
Yeah,
month.
I guess I would have just worded it different.
I
Okay,
didn't
no
understand what
problem.
that was talking about.
That's no problem at all.
I understand.
But that's essentially what we're talking about there. I'm glad you brought it up. Okay,
Okay, thanks.
the board, let's go to B. The board will work with the superintendent to achieve mutual trust and commitment to each other through professional development and a unified vision and clear communications. before Marcia talks, because you know she always has something to say, how would you measure that one?
Well, the first half is just on a one-on-one basis, you know, does Brandon communicate with me, does he answer my questions, want to email him and call him and stuff, and so that's
Right,
an
Bob.
individualistic aspect of it.
It is.
I don't know what professional development has to do with the board though, so like me as a board
Because-
member?
You as a board member.
Okay.
It's growing in your role as a school board member.
Okay.
So, I'm probably the least biased person standing in front of you to talk about this, but, here's what I do say. We provide multiple opportunities for professional development. In the board leadership department, we do like a president retreat. You don't have to be a president to come to the president retreat. It's one of the best workshops we put on. We talk a lot about board meetings. We talk a lot about the working relationship between the superintendent and the board. But it is really getting into the inner workings of what should a board meeting look like. We might talk about committee meetings, do a lot of scenarios. It's great discussion. Sometimes have an entire board and the superintendent attend those. I especially see new superintendents that attend that, but it's just, that's one opportunity. Another thing that we do in board leadership, of course, is always going to be new board member workshop. And that's always just a great refresher. We've done leadership workshops until we can find a time in the year that people are not so busy. I'm not a fan. I've told Sharon, I don't think I want to continue to do that. But the best part about it is there are 3 people on my team now that can provide you professional development in this district. 35, 40 minutes away from you. We can come here and we can do the learning here. We're not here to see how much money we can make off of you. And so if you decide that you want to do a series of workshops on professional development and growing, we figure out what that looks like. And we make it we don't want it to be cost prohibitive. Not that we are the most expensive game in town, but I'm not here to do that. I have to be respectful of the fact that you're spending tax dollars. And so I want to own that and I want to honor that.
And I would say too, that just, you have board members that at different times of year are able to make things or cannot make things. I know, there's some of my board members where the spring is just out. They just can't attend to any event that's out. And the different makeups of the board result in the number of events, ebbing and flowing that people attend to. What I also advocate for is we literally live and we're governing in a space of educators. And those educators can educate you on this specific district, right? So if you are going to be if you have something that's going to be coming up in your agenda that you need to make a decision on, and having a 10-minute presentation from one of your administrators, like we just in David City, we had our health coordinator. She came and she gave us a presentation on what the health program and the changes that we've made over the last couple of years and what it used to be and what it is now, and what we might want to consider doing later. So that is a great resource, because the number one goal is that we all have shared knowledge and we all know what's going on in the district, and we can all have a conversation. Because if you know something and you don't know, then we can't ask questions and we can't have a conversation that really gets us anywhere. We can't move forward if not everybody's on the same page, right? So even if we're not able to go and get that information somewhere else, using the resources that we have here and tapping into the experts that we have in our district is also another way. So it says professional development, and of course, connecting and networking with other board members from across the state is really important too. But just so that everybody has that same knowledge of working, that's what we mean by professional development, is knowing what's going on in your district.
And when your administrators present to you, the question that you need to be asking is, what do you need from us as a board?
Right. Yeah. Is this a district resource thing? Like, how can we help you in this area? What, obviously it's going to be on the agenda, or it's something that you want us to know about. I personally, as a board president, have asked for certain presentations because I just felt like we had seen, we had a presentation on our MTSS process because we've been seeing it a lot in our admin reports. And I just kind of felt like, do we even know what that is? And so I asked our administrators to give us a presentation about it because we wanted everybody to understand what they're even reading in their admin reports. So that's an example of, yeah.
You can even bring it into your board meeting. You could talk about one goal that you're working on in your strategic plan as a board. Do we feel like we're making progress? Talk about the progress that you're making. Or, that kind of fell off of our radar, so what are we doing to address that? Okay? Maybe you want to step up even like your committee work or policy work. Are you looking at policy at every board meeting agenda? Board meeting.
Most of them, most of them.
Good, good.
Not all.
Yes, no. That's the best thing that you could have responded to me with, because that is, do not take for granted what you have in this district. Do not take for granted who you are as a board and how fortunate you are to serve on a board that is operating, that you are serving a district that operates at the level that your district does. And I say that, and I know that that means very little to you, but with the districts that we work with across the state, you are not the norm. You are above the norm. The norm, unfortunately, is not operating at a good level. We, too often, when we walk away from a strategic plan and we've handed it off, we're working in a district that they do not have adopted curriculum. And you're gonna think I'm nuts when I say things like this, but it's more common than it is not. When I say that they don't have adopted curriculum, if I go and ask for the math curriculum, somebody's gonna hand me a textbook. That is not curriculum. They don't have an instructional model. They maybe haven't aligned what curriculum they think that they have to the standards to ensure that their assessments are good and that they're setting their students up for success. Don't take for granted the great things that you have. But we never know how good we have it until we don't have it, unfortunately. And I know it's irrelevant to you that other districts operate that way, but strategic planning is not for the faint of heart. You're pulling back the veil and you're really identifying the core needs and priorities that exist in your school district. The board will collaborate with the superintendent and building administration to adopt protocols regarding the reviewing and reporting of student achievement outcomes and district leadership's accountability toward district goals. What have we been talking about, right? Data. We want the data. Our board meetings are that opportunity to bring forward to our public how we're doing as a district. So that one fits right into our board meeting reports. And then how are we going to assess the success of that particular one? The final performance indicator, the board will consider and adopt necessary revisions to the Wahoo Public Schools mission statement and develop an aligned board mission statement to integrate into board meeting agendas and decision-making practices. And so what had happened with that, usually we go through the school improvement process. This is a great conversation that you should be having with your superintendent. Where are we on our mission statement? Does our mission statement now align to our strategic plan? Does it describe who we are? It's a great conversation. And then your mission statement becomes, you put it on your agenda and you recite that mission statement and or vision statement at your board meeting, at your board meetings. And then how does your agenda support who you say you are and where you believe that you're taking this district to improve learning? So, is there anything else that you would think about, that you would want, how you would want to hold the board accountable to working in collaboration with your superintendent and administrators to continue to move the district forward? Not just in the strategic plan, but how you look at data, some of those different things.
I would just remove that professional development part.
That bothers you, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does,
Why does it bother you?
because, I mean, if you delete it, the sentence makes really good sense. Your board will work with the superintendent to achieve mutual trust and commitment to each other. End of the word.
But here's
Because
the
there's
thing.
ways to do it other than through professional development.
But professional
Professionalism.
development is something that your superintendent and your board does together.
Okay.
You grow together. And here's what I always say. This may make the hair on the back of your neck stand up when I say this, but here's what I say. We expect our students to learn. We expect our teachers to learn. We expect even our support staff to learn, because they're working directly with our kids, right? Our administrators, we expect it. Our superintendent, we expect it. We have to expect it of ourselves. The evolution of what we learn and know about our role. I can remember Di, not that many meetings ago when I was here, talking about she went to a budget finance workshop. You gained a lot from that.
Excellent.
Yeah, and how you apply what you learned in that in your board meetings, the questions that you ask, it gives you a different lens in which that you're looking through. And so, Bob, that's the only reason why, and I know we're the School Boards Association, that's what we do. But we want that for you. We want you to be articulate as you talk to your patrons, as you talk in your board meetings about that you are wanting to raise the bar and improve education. So that's why that's in there. So I think that's probably a conversation you need to have with your board.
Yeah.
Okay.
We'll go to the budget meeting again.
In a very professional manner.
Yeah, very
In a-
professional.
I think it's really important that a strategic plan is not just the administrators doing this thing over here and then they come tell us what they're doing. That's not how that's supposed to work. That it really is supposed to be, it's a conversation and it's really the board's role to ensure that that's just asking the questions and making sure that maybe things have changed. Maybe, we did this one thing over here and now things are different and we have to move it, but we don't know that as a board unless we're asking the questions. We don't know what questions to ask until we educate ourselves on an issue. And so that's why that professional development for ourselves is so important. And we don't know what we don't know. And we can't engage in a relationship on moving the district forward if I'm just gonna sit back and do a sit and get every meeting. It's asking the questions that move things along.
Mhm. I think the other part of it is, if I know probably a nice frosty drink will go really, really well when you sit down to go through the standards of board governance. I mean, it's not gonna be that riveting reading that I think that it is. But within the contents of those pages, you have a question about policy, you have a question about committee work, superintendent evaluation. We just did a leadership workshop on superintendent evaluation. And it was so great because Troy Laffelholtz, Dr. Laffelholtz, I should say, my apologies, he worked right alongside Stacy Higgins in presenting this leadership workshop. And so it wasn't just the School Boards Association saying, this is what we do as a board. It was his opportunity to articulate to board members and superintendents, this is what a superintendent is looking for from the evaluation experience. What should I expect from the superintendent evaluation? What are your protocol procedures? You just changed your tool. Are you loving it? Or are we thinking, I don't know, it's great, but what are your protocols? What have you set up? What kind of conversations have you had with your superintendent about, is this giving us the feedback that we were really hoping it would provide us? It's things like that. It's providing time, and I think oftentimes you learn, you can tell me if this would be true, Di. Sometimes I believe that you learn as much from the people that you're rubbing elbows with, other board members, as you do from the actual content. And the reason I say that is because you may go to state conference and you may be sitting next to a board member from any district in the state of Nebraska, and they start chirping away about, well, you know, in our district, and all of a sudden your cup is half full compared to their half empty cup. It gives you the opportunity to have something to compare yourself to, or you learn from it, or you learn from that presentation of, oh my gosh, that would be so cool if we did that in our district. I have no idea. So that's, I think there is value in it. Give it a chance. If I'm wrong, you don't have to listen to me the next time. So, and state conference is one of those, if you don't go to anything else, at least try to make time for Thursday at state conference. It's the best. And it's a great time for you to come together as a board, get in a vehicle, go there together, go to dinner, and connect as colleagues on the board, not as board members, and learn about each other in a different way. Learn about who your superintendent is outside of being a superintendent, who Mike is outside of the boardroom. So, what kind of questions do you have? Because our work with you is not done. Like I said, if your administration, they identify different action steps, we're gonna do A, B, C, D. We're here to support you. We'll develop you the questions, okay? We're not going away because you've adopted your strategic plan. We walk alongside you for the next 5 years. And what do we want? We want success. We want to support your success. But I want you to be able to hold the School Boards Association accountable to say, did we have a return on investment in this? I believe that you will, but we're here to make sure that that is the case, whatever you need. All your superintendent has to do is call us and say, Marcia, we need. Any one of you can call and say, Marcia, we need questions for this. Okay? All right.
I'm gonna ask one more question.
Please, I want you to.
So categorize, for my simple brain, what other kind of data do people request on a month-to-month basis? We get test scores, we get test scores, arrays,
I'll jump in.
I want you to.
thank you.
We can talk enrollment data, enrollment trends, you can look at ELL,
Okay.
HAL identification,
Right,
demographics of the school district outside of just simply your test data.
okay,
We can look at historical financials that I share,
okay.
that would be considered data. Anything that is numbers used comparatively is data, whether it's something that the kids are doing test-wise, whether it's something you're doing as a board on budgets, whether it's something we're doing administratively, all of that is.
If our CTE program has grown from, where was it, 4 years ago to today,
Yes.
we've got a new facility, or more kids getting involved in it.
These are
We-
great questions.
We oftentimes, our administrators will bring behavior data, so we'll talk about, or even attendance data.
Attendance.
So we, I think chronic absenteeism is something that a lot of schools deal with, we certainly do, and so we keep comparative data on, or even detention data, like discipline data.
ISS.
Yeah, those types of things, like, well, we pay attention to, like, we had this many tardies in the month of August, we have this many tardies in the month, and what period are they tardy, and so those are things that are in a lot of administrative reports, and they share that, and then there's oftentimes times when that happens to be relevant to an action item or something, and so then we'll talk about it that way too.
So would it be a good idea just to have them included in their administrative reports? Is that a template?
No.
No,
No, don't put it in an administrative report,
okay,
because when it's buried in an administrative report, it's not an agenda item. We're not talking about it.
Yeah, if you wanna talk about it, put it on the agenda, we don't talk about our administrative reports.
Because think about it, right now, our admin doesn't come every meeting.
Yeah, but we put a
Put a
report.
report in, but we can't ask them
Yeah.
questions if
Yeah.
they're not there,
We can request them to do it on Mondays, if there's something in there. And you
I guess what she's saying, I think what you're saying is, if it's on the agenda, there's a.
I look at it kind of like a
document.
bookmark. So if they have it in there, and you see a rise from month to month or a drop, or, then you say, well, what happened here, and you request them. It's just,
I'm
it's just
not
a
saying
question.
don't
I'm
give
not
the
hard
data.
thought on it, I just wanted to know.
I'm not saying do not ask for the data. I'm simply saying if you're asking for the data, it's got to be listed on the agenda.
Okay.
Because if it's buried in a report, and we spend 20 minutes, 30 minutes talking about it, Joe and Josephine Public would have loved to have known that that was going to be an item on the agenda, right? I'm gonna tell you it's a violation of the open meetings law. And why not put it on the agenda if you wanna talk about it? That's great stuff to talk about. Something that I thought about as you were asking that question, which I think it's a great appropriate question, because too often we think of exactly what we talked about, ACT, NSCAS, right? That's what we think of, and then we kind of stop at that point. Probably not applicable in Wahoo, but there are some districts that option enrollment, option out, and homeschool families, the number that you have, that is phenomenal data. How has it changed? How has it grown? How has it not grown?
How about for your annual report, when that gets put out, that's just something that's required by law to be put out. Do you discuss that? Is that something you have to approve it as a board? So is that's got a host of data that's in there that you could be referring back to, and, I mean, we even talk about, when we do that, we're looking at transportation, like how many miles, how are our buses being used, you know? We have those kinds of discussions too when we are looking at our annual report.
Cool. Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions? Brendan, did you have anything else?
No, I don't think so.
All right. We
Thank you.
appreciate your
Well,
time.
thank you.
Thank you for
Absolutely.
coming out.
That was awesome.
Absolutely. Thank you for having us.
What's that?
Yes, that is yours.
All right. Exciting.
Yeah, those are yours.
You stopped at adjourn meeting.
Oh, yeah, let's do that too.
I moved to adjourn.
I second that.
All in favor?
Bye.
Aye. Everybody take pizza home.
I hope I didn't.